Welcome to our bite-sized deep dive. Today it's all about body language and maybe why some people might not instantly warm to you. This is the short version. We know you're busy.
Exactly. And we're diving into some really practical insights from Vanessa Van Edwards based on her chat on The Diary of a CEO.
Our goal here is pretty simple. Pull out the stuff you can actually use, like right away from what she shared. Stuff to help with first impressions, building connections, fast.
And there's quite a bit to unpack, isn't there? We're looking at everything from that very first moment you meet someone right through to, well, building deeper relationships, both in person and, online.
Okay, let's jump in. Vanessa points to one huge mistake people make, like consistently in those first few seconds. And I think most of us are probably guilty of it sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. It's that classic move looking down at your phone or your iPad, computer, even a notepad.
Yeah.
Basically, not being present the moment you should be connecting.
Right. And she calls this the universal defeat posture. Can you maybe paint a picture of that? What does it actually look like and why is it so bad?
Sure. So picture this. Chin kind of tucked down towards your chest, shoulders maybe a bit hunched, not much space between your shoulders and ears, arms sort of held close. Um, Evolutionary psychologists actually think this posture kind of signals vulnerability, makes you look less confident, less like a leader.
That totally makes sense. Like you're physically closing yourself off.
Exactly. And understanding that sort of subconscious trigger helps you consciously choose, more open, confident stance.
She used a pretty strong word too, saying checking your phone makes you look like a loser in that context. Not literally, but in terms of winning or losing that initial interaction.
It is strong.
Yeah.
But it highlights the message you're sending, right? You're basically saying, this screen is more important than you are right now.
Yeah.
You've already lost that chance for a good first connection before it even starts.
Powerful way to put it. And it's not just about that first interaction either, is it? She mentioned introverts sometimes think the impression only starts when they talk.
That's such a key point. Many people, especially if they're more introverted, think, okay, my impression starts when I open my mouth. But no, it starts the second someone sees you. Walking into the room, across the restaurant.
Or even just seeing your profile picture online.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which brings us to digital first impressions, which are like lightning fast.
Yeah, it sounds like those online glimpses are even more critical in some ways.
They're unbelievably quick.
Yeah.
Van Edwards mentions research showing people form an opinion within the first 100 milliseconds.
Wow, less than a blink. So the little things in our profile pics, they matter hugely.
Immensely. She stresses that tiny tweaks can make a massive difference. Like, remember the face platter pose she talked about? Resting your chin on your hands?
Oh yeah, I remember that. It looked much warmer, more approachable somehow.
Exactly. It tends to signal warmth, trustworthiness, whereas, a more standard upright professional posture often reads as competence, maybe power. It's fascinating how subtle it is.
Okay, this is where it gets really practical. The idea that you can sort of dial your impression up or down, like a thermostat, balancing warmth and competence.
Precisely. Think of it as two main controls. Warmth and trust on one side, competence and power on the other. And you can consciously tweak these with specific nonverbals.
So if I want to appear warmer, more trustworthy, what should I do?
Okay, for warmth, maybe a slight head tilt. Make sure your hands are visible. Even add a bit of movement in photos like you're caught mid-walk, wind in your hair kind of thing. Makes you seem more open, relatable.
Got it. And for competence, if I want to project more authority.
For competence, maybe a more serious expression. She points out she sometimes doesn't smile on her book covers, for instance, to emphasize authority. It's about signaling capability.
She also talked about ornaments, the things we wear or show in pictures. The cat pendant example was quite good.
Yeah, that was a great illustration. The point is, these choices act like signals, attracting people who resonate with that, like other cat lovers, and maybe putting off those who don't. It's a way to find your people, basically.
And sunglasses in photos? Sounds like a definite no-no for her.
Generally, yes, because they block the eyes. Eye contact, even in a photo, helps release oxytocin, the connection hormone. So sunglasses can create this subconscious barrier, though she did clarify the research was specifically on photos.
Okay, so we've got the don'ts and the amplifiers. What about things that actively create a bad first impression?
Right. So taking up very little physical space is one. Arms pulled in tight, shoulders tense. It can signal low confidence, maybe insecurity.
The opposite of being expansive. What else?
Hidden hands. Hands in pockets under a table, just not visible. It makes people uneasy. subconsciously. Like you might be hiding something or aren't being transparent. We look to hands for intention.
That makes total sense. You want to see what people are doing. And the last big one for a bad impression.
Avoiding gaze, not making eye contact in those first few seconds. Like with sunglasses, it just blocks trust, hinders that oxytocin release, makes you seem shifty or just plain disinterested. Have you noticed that feeling yourself?
Oh, definitely. It feels really off-putting. Okay, so that's the initial meet and greet. What about once you're actually in a conversation or a meeting? How does body language play out there?
Yeah, she gives some good tips for listening, say in an interview or a meeting. One simple thing is angling your body towards the speaker, not being at a sharp V angle, which can feel disconnected.
Such a subtle point, but I can see how that physical alignment matters. Eye contact is still key too, but it's a balance, isn't it? Not too much, not too little.
Absolutely. In most Western cultures, aiming for about 60% eye contact seems to be the sweet spot for building rapport. Too little feels evasive, too much feels intense.
And she had that interesting observation about powerful people and when they make eye contact.
Right, she mentioned that people often perceived as higher status tend to hold eye contact more at the end of their point, like they're landing it with their gaze.
What about looking away? Is that always bad? I mean, sometimes you need to think.
Not at all. Actually, looking away briefly while processing maybe around 40% of the time can make you seem more thoughtful, more authentic. Our brains aren't really wired for intense thought and constant eye contact. It's only a problem if it's excessive or happens at weird times.
Okay, let's shift to starting conversations. That whole "how are you" routine. Vanessa had some really cool ideas to break that script.
She really did. She basically challenges us to ditch the automatic good or fine, busy. One idea was answering with a number, like on a 1 to 10 scale. I'm about a 7 today.
Ha! I love that. It forces you to stop and actually think, and the other person too.
Exactly. Or share a tiny, maybe funny detail. Just battling my inbox, but a solid 8 out of 10. Or a bit of self-deprecation if you're feeling messy, like better on the inside than the outside right now. Just makes it more human.
Much more memorable. And she also suggested flipping the question itself.
Yeah, instead of how are you,
Mm.
maybe try what's good today or anything interesting happen. It nudges the conversation towards positivity.
Even what's front of mind got a little tweak, didn't it?
She suggested asking, what have you been looking forward to instead? Gets people thinking about positive future stuff, which can release a bit of dopamine. It's a different energy. Do you find yourself asking more future-focused questions?
That's a good challenge, actually. I should try that. This whole idea of gifting good chemicals was fascinating. Can you unpack that a bit more?
This is really core to her philosophy. The idea that skilled communicators aim to trigger positive neurochemicals in others. Dopamine for excitement, serotonin for calm and belonging, even testosterone for feeling capable.
How does that work in practice? Breaking the script gives dopamine, you said. What about serotonin?
Serotonin often comes from finding common ground, those Me Too moments. When you find a shared interest, her thread theory really emphasizes, oh, you like that too, that's great. It builds belonging. But it has to be genuine, of course.
And testosterone, how do you gift that?
That can be about acknowledging someone's competence, making them feel capable. That was a really smart point you made. Or even just presenting your own ideas clearly and confidently can project that sense of capability.
Okay, so moving past the very first moments, how do we build on a good impression? Second impressions, follow-ups.
The key is showing you remembered them and you're genuinely pleased to reconnect. Express warmth, enthusiasm right away. It was great meeting you last week. I was hoping we'd run into each other again. Something like that.
Makes sense. What about online? Dating apps specifically. She had a tip for standing out.
Yeah, ditch the generic, hi, hey, how are you? Try something slightly different, unique. Howdy, aloha, even just bingo. Anything to be the red apple in a sea of green ones, as she put it. That peak effect being slightly different makes you memorable.
Love that analogy. And for Zoom or professional calls, any specific advice there?
Definitely turn your camera on, at least initially. It makes a big difference. And be ready when it turns on. Avoid that awkward, can you hear me? Can you see me? I mean, your impression starts instantly.
Good point. Avoid the frantic fumbling. What else for Zoom?
Position the camera well, maybe 3 feet away. Angle your body towards it. Add quick story or question, ready to avoid dead air at the start. She suggests a story toolbox on your phone, little anecdotes you can pull out.
A story toolbox, I like that. Rotating stories so you don't bore yourself.
Exactly. And backgrounds matter. She leans towards real backgrounds over blurred or fake ones. They feel more authentic and can spark conversation, bookshelves, art, whatever. And try to balance looking at the screen and the camera lens about 50-50. to simulate eye contact. Oxytocin can still happen through a screen.
Okay, let's talk about the flip side. How do you spot when someone isn't interested, and how do we show we are?
One big sign of disinterest is dream killing. Someone asks you about, say, travel. You just say, nah, I don't travel, and leave it dead. No follow-up, no alternative. It just kills the conversation. Also, just a general lack of follow-up questions is a huge sign of low engagement.
Right, the conversation just dies. So how do we actively show we like someone we're engaged?
Well, you can say it, this is really fun, or I always learned something talking to you. Be specific, non-verbally. Genuine smiles, the ones that reach the eyes, crinkle the corners, open body language, maybe some subtle mirroring, and offer micro wins. Let them guess something right, make them feel smart. He's a little dopamine hit.
Nice. And in professional settings.
Using positive priming words helps. Call it a collaboration meeting, talk about the team. It subtly sets a positive frame.
This all leads nicely into micro-expressions, those super fast facial flickers.
Exactly. Tiny, involuntary expressions that flash across the face, revealing underlying emotions. They happen so fast, often less than half a second. She focuses on 7 key ones, though there's some debate on perfect universality.
Okay, let's run through them quickly. Fear.
Fear. Eyes wide, you might see the whites above the iris. Eyebrows raised, but kind of flat and tense. Mouth might be open. Signals nervousness, feeling threatened.
Disgust.
Nose crinkles, upper lip might pull up slightly, maybe showing upper teeth. It's revulsion, dislike. Can even flash when someone dislikes a lie they're hearing or telling.
Anger.
Their brows pulled together, a sort of glare. Lips tight, either pressed together or maybe open in a tense square shape. Pretty clear hostility or frustration.
Happiness, the real kind.
That's the Duchenne smile. It's not just the mouth corners going up, it's the muscles around the eyes engaging, causing crow's feet.
Yeah.
Upper cheeks lift. Fake smiles often miss that eye action.
Sadness. She said this one's contagious.
Yeah, corners of the mouth downturned, maybe the lower lip pushes out slightly, eyes might narrow, eyelids droop. It's hard to fake well and can trigger empathy, even yawns or watery eyes in others.
Surprise. The quickest one.
Yep. Eyes wide open, mouth open, eyebrows raised high, and usually quite arched or rounded.
Yeah.
Very brief. Key difference from fear is often the eyebrow shape more arched in surprise.
And finally, contempt. The relationship killer.
That's the tricky one. Often just one side of the mouth lifts slightly in a smirk or sneer. It signals disdain, feeling superior. Really corrosive, especially in close relationships.
Wow. So if you spot one of these, especially negative one, what do?
Gently check in. Hey, everything okay? Or you seem a bit concerned. Don't accuse, just inquire. She also suggested naming a possible emotion if you're unsure, like, are you feeling frustrated? People will often correct you if you're wrong, but it opens the door to understanding.
That's helpful. Okay, wrapping up, let's touch on charisma and personality. Charisma isn't just something you're born with, right?
Right. That's the encouraging part. Much of it is learned. Observing charismatic people, their nonverbals, their vocal power, you can practice and improve. Breaking conversational scripts helps too.
And just your general vibe matters.
Hugely. People pick up on discomfort or fakeness. So doing things you genuinely enjoy, being in places you like, that helps your natural positive energy come through. She even suggested trying on a role model's persona to feel how it shifts your own body language.
Fascinating. And quickly on personality, the big 5, Ocean, how do those traits affect connections?
Okay, super quick. Openness, curious versus routine loving. Mismatches can cause friction over trying new things. Conscientiousness, organized, reliable versus more spontaneous. High C is linked to stability. Extroversion, energy from people versus solitude. Mismatches in social needs can be tough. Agreeableness, cooperative, wants to be liked versus more skeptical, direct. High A can lead to overcommitment. Low A can seem harsh. Neuroticism, tendency to worry versus emotionally stable. Mismatches can lead to misunderstandings about stress.
And any links to things like longevity or relationship status?
Yeah, high conscientiousness and high extroversion seem linked to longer lives, good habits, and strong social ties. High neuroticism may be less so due to stress. And lifelong singles sometimes trend lower on openness, extroversion, and conscientiousness, according to some research she mentioned.
And even a handshake can tell you something.
Potentially. Firmness, length, pumps might correlate with extroversion. And apparently we subconsciously sniff our hand after shaking someone else's, maybe picking up chemical cues. Wild stuff. Basically trust your gut feeling, that initial vibe.
We've covered a lot, even in this bite-sized version, but hopefully some useful nuggets there. It really makes you think about your own first impression, doesn't it? Are you accidentally projecting defeat with your phone?
Or think about your conversations. Are you stuck in scripts? Or are you trying to genuinely connect, maybe gift some of those good chemicals.
And those micro expressions start paying attention. What are people really feeling underneath? What are you showing?
Reflect on your personality, too, and how it interacts with others. Where could a little more understanding or compromise make relationships stronger?
Because, as Vanessa emphasized, connection is just so vital. For health, for happiness, don't let small, unnoticed things get in the way.
So the final thought to leave you with, what was the one thing today that really struck a chord? And what's one tiny change you could make, maybe even today, in how you interact with people? The huge topic, human connection, and we've only just scratched the surface.